moving into the showrunner position. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big role and a big responsibility. So, how did you go into preparing for this season, knowing that yes, this is my new job title, and I'm sure there are other things now that you had to take into consideration you didn't?
I was very lucky because I had some exceptional mentors that helped to train me up for this job. Both in terms of obviously Neil, but I've worked with Simon Barry before, who's done a number of shows, and I also worked under John Worth and did Wu Assassins, which comes out on Netflix in August, and so I was sort of trained into doing the job. So my mandate coming in was, don't screw it up, keep what makes Van Helsing, but also find a way to take the show in a new direction, put my own spin on it. And I was very lucky because my bosses gave me the latitude to do that. So it was just a great job to step into. And there's those things that you think you know, there's those things that you think you don't know, and then there's the things that just you have to catch up and figure out. And I did a little bit of that.
So what new did you?
So my question is going to be kind of dumb, but I've always wanted to ask a new show this question. When you come into a show that's been on for already 3 seasons, what kind of research and background do you do? Do you have to actually go in and binge watch everything, take copious notes if you're not ready to go, or do you want to go fresh? How does that process go?
Well, I think if it were a show where I hadn't been on the show at all, then yeah, that would definitely be the process. But for me, I've been writing on the show since season 1.
Okay.
So I was very well attuned with the machine of what Van Helsing was. But as I was saying, I was given this opportunity, this latitude to kind of spin it off in a new direction. So I added a bunch of new cast, and I started digging into other areas of storytelling that we hadn't done on the show before. And I'm really proud of this season that we managed to take it in a different direction. So for me as a showrunner, it's about sticking true to what makes the show, but finding new avenues to express yourself.
And is there a certain time limit, or is there a certain stopping point you have in mind where you think this show has kind of reached its natural conclusion? Or do you have stories for another 3, 4, 5 years?
Well, the interesting thing for me is you always try and think about what I call goalposts. And goalposts could be for the end of the season or could be for the end of the entire show. What are you building towards? Where are you going? And if you get... TV's obviously always a very unpredictable medium in the sense that it would be great to know you get to write to the end of a story and conclude your story. But you never know, you may get canceled, and you leave your season on a hook, and you don't get to finish the story. So my only hope here is to make a compelling season, to hopefully get a renewal, get into a season 5. As far as where the show goes and when it reaches its end point, I think that's a combination of when you feel personally satisfied about the journey, but also if you feel like the audience have reached a point where they feel like, I've explored these characters in this world enough, and I kind of feel done. And I think you arrive at those two things sometimes simultaneously, and sometimes that's ratings, sometimes that's network executives, sometimes that's cast who want to move on. There's lots of variables, but I'm happy doing it, and hopefully I get to do some more.
What did you learn as the showrunner? What did you end up picking up some new skills or learning mediation or other things that you didn't have to do as a writer?
Well, I think the fascinating thing is I had a lot of the responsibilities of a showrunner as being basically the second in charge, but it's always different when you put on that hat because everything stops with you. You're the one who's supposed to arbitrate all the decisions. So, I think one of the important lessons I learned was the important thing is to make a decision about any given topic. You can always change your mind later if you think it's the wrong one, but people are looking to you for leadership, so you have to be definitive. I think the other thing for me, I learned a lot more about the fine details of post-production that I wasn't as aware of. I'm aware of editing, I'm aware of sound mixing, but the degree to which you can affect the finished product with something like color timing, or the sound mix, the final sound mix, those little details, there still aren't in there to help make the product that much better. So those places where I definitely have some learning to do in those arenas. But overall, it's been a fantastic experience. I love it.
You have a background as an actor, and you've dealt with different showrunners. How much of that background do you take into your showrunning position when dealing with the actors?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think my job, both as a writer and ultimately as a showrunner, is to figure out a way to give actors material to really dig their teeth into. Vampire show, it's kind of a bit of a pun, but and as an actor, I think I understand the language to communicate things to them very effectively, and my cast really trust me because they know I come from an acting background. I know their process. So it was a good short. I had a good shorthand with my actors, and especially new actors coming into the show. You know, some of them had worked with me before as actors, so there was a trust that was there. You know, before we did anything, so it was very helpful.
What can you tease us about season 4?
Well, definitely what I can tease you about season 4 is darkness rises. You know, Dracula is coming out of purgatory and is back on Earth, and where that goes is going to be pretty exciting. I can tell you that, as we have done in the past, nobody's safe, so some characters that you might not expect end up having interesting turns. Other characters who you might think are just stalwarts don't last. So there's some interesting, you know, different things, and I think we really pushed the show into different territory in terms of both the style of how we shot it and the locations we shot in. There's an amazingly varied tapestry of things, and I encouraged our directors to say, let's do something cool here. So just to give you one example, without giving too much away, there's one episode, middle of our season, that we basically shot a Western. It's like a vampire Western, and it's actually really cool. I think it's my favorite episode of the season. And to put a visual stamp on it, we shot it in CinemaScope, which is that letterbox version that you'd see in films like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And so it gave it a hugely different feel. And I'm really proud of that. I think the show's got a lot going for it this season that it didn't necessarily have going on before.
Was that fun?
Yeah.
It's so cool that you're going, you know, sort of a new direction, but are there any sort of lost side storylines that you might revisit because you were sad to see them kind of fade away or go, or anything from other seasons, like, okay, I'm in charge now, I want this?
Well, it's a very good question. You know, I'm always a big believer that in genre especially, characters are never dead. There's always a way to bring them back, and you may have noticed that a character like Susan, we just kept bringing her back in different forms. So at one point she was a dream that someone was having, and at another point one of the elders masqueraded as her. So there's interesting ways to sometimes have, you know, the best of both worlds. And so in terms of storylines that I think would have been interesting to take further, I definitely am always curious about the change for characters between human and vampire, or vampire and human. And those sorts of explorations were interesting to me. And I think that certainly with Julius, Panovik's character, he made such a dramatic turn between being a really bad guy to being this really sensitive human. And I think sometimes I miss the vampire. And so we did actually, without turning him back into a vampire, we did explore a little bit of his vampire personality this season, just to kind of not keep it too safe, just to kind of have a little edge to it. So there's an episode where you'll see a little bit of that. So I did get to do that this season.
So here's an obvious follow-up question to that. Why is it when someone nice like Julius gets turned into a bad guy, they go completely up top, but then you have a bad guy like Sam, who's just a bad guy, whether he's human or bad? What is it about vampirism that, I guess, turns people bad? Like, couldn't you just be a decent vampire? Is that such a thing?
Well, that's a good question. The metaphor we used in the writing room early on, which we sort of said, well, what is it? What is this vampirism? What would it do to, you know, somebody? And the analogy I always used is it's like somebody getting addicted to heroin. They might have been a really good, decent person to begin with, and then suddenly this addiction, this drug, turns them into something bad. And they may even be aware that they're bad, and they may even not like that they're bad. Or maybe they embrace it. Maybe they lean in and they're like, I enjoy this. I like the buzz and the high of this. But then if they're able to get clean again later, they might go, oh my God, the things I did, the person I was, I can't fathom that I liked that. And I've certainly spoken to addicts because it was such a strong metaphor for us. I've talked to them about their journey back to sobriety. And sometimes they'll be really candid with you, and they'll say things like, yeah, I did terrible things when I was an addict, and there's still part of me that misses it. And that for us with our vampires that turn human characters, I'm always interested in the subtleties of, but what if you missed it? What if there was still a little part of you that wanted that high, that buzz? So that's sort of, in terms of white and black, in terms of character types, I like to play with shades of gray. I like everyone to be a bit more conflicted. And Sam has some moments of conflicting this season, for sure.
So the one thing I've always been curious about is you never explored the idea of Vanessa having her own kind of cult. Like she turns so many people human in her game, but then she leaves them.
Yeah.
Will there ever be an opportunity for her to kind of form her, and not even purposefully, but like a cult to form around her of people she turns?
If you've been reading our scripts, you've got an inside. There's a moment for sure where something like that does happen for Vanessa. It's this interesting thing of some people would view a character like her with a bit of a messiah complex. You're the person who can change people, and that's pretty compelling. That's something that you probably would want to bow down to and follow. And so, yes, that happens this season.